Hello and welcome to another interesting tutorial. If this is your first time of seeing our video, you're welcome to our channel. This channel is just all about sewing, everything sewing. That's what we do here. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how I made this dress from beginning to the end, from scratch. So you can see these are the pieces of fabric that I have that I'll be using for the dress, and here is the measurement that I'm working with. This is my measurement: the shoulder, the armhole, the bust, hip, gown length, sleevelets, and sleeve round. That's just the measurement I'll be needing. So what I'll do is that I folded this fabric into two. I will just have this kind of rectangle, and I'm going to mark out my starting point. That's going to be my guide, and from there I'm going to take down the length of the gown, which mine is 42 inches. So I'm just going to mark it out. And I'll be adding 1 inch allowance for hemming the dress. So that's it. At this point here, I'm going to be marking out the cut together sleeve, which is 19. You know, the dress is a drop shoulder, so that's why I have up to 19 inches as my shoulder. It's a drop shoulder, so I'm going to mark out 19 inches, and I'm going to mark out half an inch for joining it to the rest of the sleeve. So here I'm going to be marking out 3 inches for the neck width, and at this point here I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch. So from here to here I'm going to create a shoulder slope. So once I create the shoulder slope, I'm going to be marking out the armhole. The armhole measurement and the sleeve round measurement is the same since it's an oversized sleeve. So I'm going to mark it out, which I have 20 there. If I divide it by 2, I'll have 20. I have 20 there, I mean to say if I divide it by 2, I'll have 10. So here I'm going to be marking out the bust measurement, which is 44 inches divided by 4. And I'm going to be adding my 1.5 inches allowance. I'm just going to create a curve like that. So at this point here I'm going to be coming down by half an inch. Since it's the back, I'm cutting out the back first, so I'm going to mark out half an inch. So for me to get my hip line, I'm going to come down by 18 inches for my half length and my 10 inches hip depth. So that's going to be my guide to know my hip depth. So on this hip depth now, I will mark out 56 inches because it's an oversized dress. So I'll mark out 56 inches, and I'll also mark out the 1.5 inches allowance. I'm just going to take that measurement down. So like this, I'm going to connect it down. I don't want it to be too oversized, that's why I'm just marking it out like that. So while cutting at the shoulder, I added my seam allowance, since I did add seam allowance when I was marking it out on the shoulder. So I folded another fabric into two, and I just placed this one on top of it to cut it out. So that one is going to be my front measure, my front pattern, and this one is going to be my back pattern. So for the front neck depth, I marked out 3 inches depth, and for the back I marked out half an inch. So I'm just going to cut out the front neck depth, and that is just it. This is it. I have my back pattern piece and my front pattern piece. Now to complete the sleeve, I have to fold another fabric into 4, and I'll mark out the starting line here. I'm going to be adding 1.5 inches at the center, that's the center of the folded part of the fabric, and I'm going to mark out the sleeve round plus my allowance. That's what I'll be cutting out. And of course the sleeve length is the continuation of the together sleeve. I don't know if what I'm saying is making sense. So here I'm just going to be marking out 10 inches. I'll mark out 10 inches, and I'm going to cut out a piece of fabric that I'll use for my facing. I want to create an opening where I'll be adding the zipper. So I iron this to get the middle, and I'll just mark it out straight like that. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to open up the front pattern of the dress, the center. So I'm going to place it at the center. I want it to match the middle of the dress. So once I marked it, I'm going to use my pin to secure it to make sure it's in the middle. So once it's in the middle, I'm going to mark out 1/4 of an inch around that marked area, that's the center. Make sure you are making use of your ruler, because what I'm marking out here, you can see is not straight. So once I got to where I want it, I'm going to mark it out like this. So I'm going to stitch it round. So once I finish stitching it round, I'm going to slit open that place. Yes, that's what you see me do. I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to flip everything to the wrong side of the dress, and I'm going to iron it down. So after ironing it down, I'll trim off those things there. I'm going to add my zipper, and I'll also pin the zipper down. So once I finish pinning down the zipper, I'm going to top stitch on it round. So after top stitching on it, you can see what we have. You see? So what I'm going to do next now is that I'm going to get the back pattern of the dress, and I'm going to place it on top of the front pattern, and I'm going to be holding down the shoulders. So I'm going to stitch down the shoulders with the 0.5 inches allowance I added. So after stitching down the shoulders, this is what I have. I'm going to get the sleeve, and I'm going to pin it down. I'm going to pin down the other side of the sleeve, and of course I'm going to stitch it down. So after stitching it down, I went ahead to hem the sleeve. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to shape this dress. I added 1.5 inches allowance when I was marking it out, so I'm going to be shaping it out with 1 inch. I'm going to leave that 1/2 inch there just to be an ease. So I'm just going to stitch it down, and I'll be doing the same thing on the other side as well after I'll hem the dress. So after doing that, you can see I've hemmed the dress, and I've also added the invisible pocket. If you want to know how that was made, I'll place the link in the description box below on how to add an invisible pocket. So here I folded the dress into two to mark out what I have for the neck. You can see it. I have 8.5. If I multiply it by 2, I'll have 17. So that is what I'll be marking out. I'll be cutting out 17. So I've already ironed interfacing. This is gum stay. I've already ironed a gum stay to this because I don't trust the electricity. I don't trust them. So I just went ahead to iron it down. So here I'm marking out the 17 inches, and I'll be adding 1 inch allowance to that. Now for the length of the collar, I marked out 13. That's 6 inches. If I fold it, then I'm going to use that half inch to stitch it down to the neck. But mine came out too big, so I'll advise you go for 5 inches or you go for 4.5 inches. Unless you want yours to be as big as mine, you can actually do it. So this is it. Once I fold it into two, I'm going to have this. So what I'll do next now is that I'm going to notch the center of the back, that's the neck back, and I'm going to get the center of my collar, and I'm going to pin down the neck to the collar. If you are finding this tutorial helpful and you are watching up to this moment, please do subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and like this video. So I'm going to stitch it down. After stitching it down, I'll fold it back right sides together like this, and I'm going to be shaping out, as in closing the edge by the 1/4 inch there. I'm going to be closing the edges with the inches, that's my seam allowance. I'm going to stitch it down. So after stitching it down, I'm notching this edge because I don't want it to be too big when I turn it to the right side. So I'm just going to turn it to the right side. You can see what we have here now. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to fold in my allowance, and I'm going to top stitch on it. That's what you see me do now. I'll go ahead to top stitch on it, and that's just it. This is me checking it out. You can see how beautiful it looks. I love everything about this dress. So this is it. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. Happy sewing.